I want you to picture a specific image. It's one that keeps popping up in the forums and the political threads we've been reading this week. You picture a humid Florida morning, palm tree swaying, maybe a golfer in the distance, and then, well, flashing lights. U.S. Marshals rolling up to the gates of Mar-a-Lago.
It's the season finale everyone thinks they're waiting for.
That is exactly what it feels like. We imagine this standoff, helicopters circling, a Hollywood-style raid with battering rams.
Yeah.
But we went through a massive stack of legal analyses and procedural breakdowns for this deep dive. And the reality, it is completely different.
It's quieter, and honestly, it's much more devastating.
That's what got me reading through these briefs, because we aren't talking about a criminal raid here. We're talking about something the legal world calls judgment enforcement. It's not about handcuffs. It's about math.
It's about the machine. I mean, when the court system shifts from deciding who is right to collecting what is owed, the rules change entirely. Status doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the asset and the debt.
So today, our mission is to strip away all the politics. We aren't here to debate the cases or, who deserves what. We are looking strictly at the mechanics. How does the government actually seize a property that houses a Secret Service protectee? And what are the quiet signals, the ones you won't see on the news, that indicate it's about to happen?
And perhaps most importantly, what happens to the brand when the keys are handed over to a bureaucrat?
Let's dive into the machinery first. Because I think most people assume that if a court says you owe $100 million and you don't pay, the police just show up the next day. But there's a big gap there.
There is a massive gap. So let's start with the trigger. The court hands down a civil judgment. You owe X amount. The clock starts ticking immediately. Usually you have about 30 days.
And that's the window to pay up or post a bond to appeal, right?
Correct. If you post the bond, which is basically putting the money in a safe box to prove you have it, the enforcement stops while you appeal. But let's say you don't. Let's say you stall, or let's say you claim you just don't have the cash.
The plaintiff doesn't just get to, walk into your house and take your TV.
No, they have to go back to court. And they get a specific tool called a writ of execution.
This term kept coming up in the research. The writ of execution. It sounds so medieval.
It does, doesn't it? But it's the golden ticket for creditors. A writ of execution is the court formally commanding the sheriff or the U.S. Marshal to satisfy the debt by seizing assets. It turns the judgment from a piece of paper into a physical action.
But, and this is a huge but that I think gets missed, they usually start with the low-hanging fruit. They don't go for the castle first.
Never. You start with liquid assets, bank accounts, stocks, bonds. Why? Because seizing those is clean. You send a piece of paper to a bank and the number in the account goes to zero. It's almost instantaneous.
Whereas seizing a physical building, that just sounds like a complete nightmare.
It's a logistical horror show. I mean, it takes months. You have to inspect it, insure it, maintain it. Courts hate being landlords. They do not want to mow the lawn at a golf course.
So, if we are looking at a scenario where they are targeting a property like Mar-a-Lago, that implies something huge about the debtor's finances.
Exactly. It implies the liquid cash isn't there, or it's been moved somewhere offshore where the writ can't reach it. Going after the real estate is the nuclear option. It means the creditor has run out of easier ways to get paid.
It's like trying to repo a car while someone is still driving it, except the car is a historic landmark and the driver is a former president.
And that brings us to the strategy of leverage. Why do you target the club? Because it hurts. If you seize a bank account, it's a hassle. If you seize the crown jewel of a business empire, you have the debtor's full attention.
It forces a crisis.
It bypasses all the political arguments and makes it purely about asset recovery. The marshals aren't there to punish. Punishment is for criminal law. This is civil. They are there because the asset guarantees payment.
Okay, so if this is the nuclear option, surely there are warning signs before the bomb drops. We talked about red flags in the prep for this. How do we know if this is actually happening?
You have to watch the docket, not the television. The sources highlighted 4 distinct red flags, but the one that really stood out to me was the docket language shift.
Ah, the code switch.
It's subtle, but it's deadly. In the beginning, you see standard scheduling orders, payment due by the 15th, that sort of thing. But when the court's patience runs out, the language changes. You start seeing the judge asking for an accounting of assets.
Which is the court saying, show me the money.
Literally. They are demanding a list of everything you own. And if the debtor refuses or plays games, you see the term receiver start to float around. And that That's the point of no return.
We'll get to the receiver in a minute because that is a fascinating concept. But I want to touch on the silence factor. This was in one of the legal analysis pieces we read.
It's so counterintuitive. We're used to loud public defenses, especially with, high-profile figures. But the source noted that right before a seizure, the bluster often just vanishes.
Why? I would think they'd be screaming louder than ever.
Because their lawyers have effectively tackled them. At this stage, anything you say can be used to prove bad faith.
Oh, that's interesting. So if you go on TV and say, I have plenty of cash, I just won't pay because this is unfair.
You have just handed the marshals the evidence they need to prove willful non-compliance.
What?
You've admitted you have the means but are refusing a court order that just accelerates the seizure.
So the silence isn't a retreat. It's a legal necessity to avoid talking your way into losing your house faster.
Exactly. When the rhetoric shifts from specific legal arguments to vague generalities or just stops altogether, it means the legal team knows the wall is closing in.
Okay, let's walk through the actual day. The writ is signed. The red flags have all turned into green lights for the marshals. They roll out. But here's the elephant in the room. Mar-a-Lago isn't just a club. It's the residence of a former president. It is armed Secret Service agents guarding the perimeter.
And this is where the Hollywood version just crashes into reality. The U.S. Marshals are Department of Justice. The Secret Service is Department of Homeland Security. They are not going to have a shootout at the gate.
That would be, well, a constitutional crisis, to put it mildly.
It just wouldn't happen. The sources emphasize that these agencies have deconfliction protocols. They have each other's phone numbers. It's all very bureaucratic.
So how does it work then? Do the marshals just ask the Secret Service to step aside?
It's more of a bureaucratic handshake. The marshals aren't there to grab the person. They are there to grab the title to the land. This leads to something called constructive seizure.
Constructive seizure. That sounds fake. Like they're just pretending to seize it.
Oh, it's very real legally. It means they don't necessarily physically eject everyone on day one. The marshals walk into the general manager's office, hand over the court order, and say, effective immediately, all revenue, all bank accounts, and all management decisions now belong to the court-appointed receiver.
So the president might not even be evicted immediately.
Probably not that day. He might be allowed to stay as a resident, maybe even paying rent to the court. But his control, gone.
They turn him from an owner into a tenant.
Worse, a tenant in a building run by a neutral party who only cares about the debt. And think about this receiver. This is usually a forensic accountant or a specialized lawyer. Their only job is asset preservation.
Which means?
It means maximizing value. So if the receiver thinks a big political fundraiser might damage the brand's long-term value or create some new liability, canceled.
If they think the security costs for a specific event are too high.
Canceled. If the loyalist staff are hiding books or interfering in any way, fired.
Wow. So it creates a zombie property. It looks the same from the outside. The flags are still flying. The gold paint is still there. But the heart of the operation has been cut out.
And replaced with a calculator. The so what here is that it stops the property from functioning as a political or financial base overnight. The court controls the keys, literally and metaphorically.
That is devastating in a way that's completely separate from the money. It's about utility. You can't campaign from a building you don't actually control.
Precisely. And this triggers the domino effect. Because in real estate, at this level, debt is never isolated. It's an ecosystem.
This is where we get into the financial weeds a bit, but it's so crucial. The term is cross-default clauses.
And this is the absolute nightmare scenario for any developer. Most big commercial loans have a clause that says, if you go into default or lose a major asset on any other loan, you are automatically in default on this loan.
Wait, hold on. Let me make sure I get this. So seizing Mar-a-Lago in Florida could trigger a foreclosure on a tower in New York.
Yes. Even if the New York mortgage is paid up to date. Yes.
That seems insane. Why would they do that?
Because banks are nervous creatures. If they see your flagship asset gets seized by the government, they panic. All their risk models go into the red. They assume you're insolvent. So they call in their loans immediately to get their money out before anyone else does.
It's a run on the bank, but the bank is you.
It's a liquidity crisis. That's the liquidity trap the authors talked about. It's not just losing one building. It's the whole house of cards shaking because the foundation just got nationalized.
And legal strategy collapses too, right? I mean, appeals cost money.
Huge money. And if your revenue streams are frozen by a receiver, how do you pay your lawyers?
You don't.
And lawyers, generally speaking, stop working when the checks stop clearing. So the whole delay everywhere strategy just, it falls apart because you can no longer fund the delay?
It sounds like once you cross this line, once the receiver walks in, there's a psychological shift that happens, not just for the person involved, but for everyone watching.
It is the point of no return. Even if, by some miracle, the debt is paid later and the property is returned, the dynamic has changed forever. The myth of permanence is cracked.
Talk to me about that, the myth of permanence.
Well, we look at figures like former presidents or, billionaires, and we assume their world is solid, that certain structures are untouchable, that they are permanent fixtures on the American landscape.
Too big to fail, too famous to seize.
Exactly, but when a receiver steps in, changes the locks, and starts auditing the safe, that myth just evaporates. The structures are revealed to be conditional.
It proves that ownership is only valid as long as you follow the rules.
And that has a chilling effect on everyone in that orbit. Donors, business partners, allies, they watch this happen and they start to reassess their own exposure. They ask, if the court can take the crown jewel, can they come for my contribution? Can they subpoena my records?
It's a reality check. The whole invincibility cloak just drops.
It does, and it leaves a long-term legacy. It's not just about this specific property. It sets a precedent. It signals that resistance has limits. Future arguments for special treatment lose power because there is now a documented record of forced compliance.
It's like the system is finally proving it has teeth.
And that it is willing to use them regardless of who is on the other end of the bite.
So let's bring this all together. We've gone from a missed payment deadline, through the quiet accumulation of latings, past all the red flags of denied stays, all the way to a U.S. Marshal standing at the front desk with a receiver.
It's a journey from assumed power to tested power.
That is the big takeaway for me. The source had that provocative line. Enforcement is the moment when power stops being assumed and starts being tested.
That's the core of it. We often assume that political power and legal authority are the same thing, or that one can trump the other. But in a judgment enforcement scenario, the rules didn't change. The law didn't change.
But who the rules applied to did.
Exactly. The system is designed to be slow, and it's designed to be cautious. It gives you every chance to pay, but it is also designed to be final.
It's a heavy realization. We get so caught up in the daily back and forth of the headlines, the tweets, the speeches. But underneath all of that, there is this slow, grinding machine of the civil courts.
And that machine doesn't care about the headlines. It cares about the docket. It cares about the writ.
So, for everyone listening, the next time you see a breaking news alert about a big legal battle, maybe don't look at what's being said at the press conference.
No. Look at the docket. Look for the accounting of assets. Look for the receiver. That is where the real story is happening.
That is where the quiet signals are.
And usually, by the time the rest of us hear the noise, the outcome has already been decided in those quiet rooms.
A fascinating look at the mechanics of power. We're going to leave it there for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and keep watching those dockets.
Indeed, it's all in the paperwork.